there's this idea that when you grow up, if you want to have a career, you can't also have hobbies and you can't also have special interests and hyperfixations. And it's really important to demonstrate that you can have all these things and just tie them together, and you don't need to keep them separate from each other. You're allowed to mix all these interests and all these skills and let them sort of trickle down through all the areas of your life.
Hello, I'm your host, Sam East. Welcome to Diverse, a SWE podcast. Today, we have a very special guest joining us from Australia. Alise Fox is a mathematician, fisheries scientist, science communicator, and advocate for gender and neurodivergence representation in STEM. I'm excited to talk with Alise about nonlinear career paths, how to stay creatively inspired in technical fields, and how to navigate work environments that honor how you think and work best. We also featured Alise in the People section of the winter 2025 issue of SWE magazine, so be sure to check out that write-up as well. Alise, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to Diverse.
Thank you so much, Sam. I'm really excited to be here. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, I feel it. We got some good energy going on here. As we always do, we love to go back to the beginning. Can you introduce yourself, walk us through your career journey? Because up at the top there, we covered a lot. You have become a self-described mathmafishian who works at the intersection of math, data, and fish. So please break that down for us.
Well, okay. So first things first, Mathmafishian is just a word that my friend and I invented one day over lunch. So if you try to Google careers as a mathematician, you won't get very far.
Darn.
But yeah, I guess to tell you my life story, I'm one of many people who didn't really know what they wanted to be when they grew up. I knew that I've always loved maths. I say maths. I think, internationally that you might say math, but I say maths with an S. I knew that I loved maths and I loved the environment and nature but also a million other different things. And so when it came the time to, pick my subjects at school or pick my university course, I was really clueless and lost and I didn't know what to do. So I thought, if I like maths, I might become a mathematician. But what does that even mean? What does that look like? I didn't really have any examples of what a mathematician really was. And so I looked to the one example I had in front of me, which was my high school maths teacher, and thought, okay, I'll do that. And so I went to university for 4 years and became a high school maths teacher, was career number one. And I lasted about 6 months in that job. I was quite young at the time and it wasn't quite fitting with me. I love teaching maths, but there was a lot that I wasn't ready for because I was still very little and had a lot to learn still. So I thought I'd go back to university and learn more maths. And so I did my honours degree, which was about a 1-year course, and I used maths to understand biomechanics. So there was a sort of biomechanics problem I was trying to tackle, which was looking at, somebody riding a bike, a cyclist, and we had those motion captured dots all over them to capture their movements in 3 dimensions. And I was trying to break down those movements using these different mathematical tools to do a sort of biomechanical analysis from a maths perspective. And that was really fun. So I was like, okay, maths is cool. I'm going to keep going with this. And so I started a PhD, which was still under the umbrella of maths, but applied to pavement engineering. So this is my engineering sort of link here on an engineering podcast. That project was looking at roads, like asphalt pavements, and how they squish and deform and stress and strain, and trying to define that using mathematics to model it and, describe the deformation of pavements and how we can make them last longer. I didn't love that project very much, unfortunately. And by the end, it came out as a master's degree, not a PhD. So a bit of a sidestep there. And I got to the end and was like, okay, well, I've got my teaching degree and I've got my bicycle degree and my squishy road degree, and I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. So I had a few different options ahead of me. So I'd been teaching at the university for a while. I thought I could make something out of that. I was interviewing for a job to host a kids' TV show about science, which would have been so much fun. But also one of my best friends works where I work now. And I was like, hey, she's a strawberry breeder, which is also a very cool job, making awesome strawberries in the agriculture sector. And she was like, hey, there's a maths job going. You should apply for it. And I was like, I've never done fish, but I'm going to give it a go because maths is maths and you can apply it in lots of different areas. So that's how I got to this job, which was unexpected, but so lucky because I really love what I do now. So my job now is essentially to figure out how many fish there are in the ocean.
Wow.
Which is a big job. It's not the entire ocean because that would be impossible. But my job is essentially to look at one species at a time in one sort of area. So maybe, the east coast of Queensland, which is where I live, and, figure out how those populations are tracking and if we're fishing them too much or if we could fish them more than we are. And the work I do, I sort of get a result of how the population is tracking, and then we use that to dictate what the fishing laws should be in the future, which I think is really cool because, it's maths, but it's also a bit of marine biology and it's a bit of ecology and it's statistics and it's computer programming and it's all of these different things at once. And I think it's really exciting and it's a tangible job as well because I can see the result of what I'm doing and feel like I'm having an impact on the world.
My mind is absolutely blown right now by everything that you've just described. I've heard a lot over the years, and I'm sure all of us have, about that sort of analogy of when you're feeling overwhelmed by something, if you go by a big body of water, by ocean, it makes you feel small, not in a bad way, but it's like, my stressors are so small compared to this vastness that's in front of me. Being that you work in this field, but you have so much knowledge around it. How does that make you feel working? It's so vast, the knowledge that you have.
I've never really thought about that. I think I see the ocean differently now. I think especially with my work being what it is, it's really the triple bottom line. So it's people and it's the planet and it's economics and everything as well. So there's so much ingrained with it. So seeing the ocean, but also knowing, this is people's livelihoods and it's also a delicate environment. And, there's so much at play when I just look at the ocean now, which is a blessing and a curse.
Yeah. And I mean, perhaps my question should be revised too. Do you really feel the interconnectedness in your line of work?
Yeah, I live near the beach, so I see the ocean quite regularly and people engage with the ocean in so many different ways. We take for granted that our way of engaging with the ocean is the only way that people do. And so it's really been quite eye-opening to see all the different ways that people rely on the ocean. And also the deeper you dig, the more we realize that we need the ocean to be happy and healthy for the future of humankind. And so it's a lot of pressure, but I have a really good work ethic and I try very hard. So I'm glad I can be at the helm of trying to do what's best for the world through my work.
Well, this could easily go into a philosophical conversation, but we got to stay focused here. It sounds like your career path, hasn't quite followed a straight line, which is the case for many of our listeners, many of the guests of the podcast. In your recent TEDx talk, you speak about what you say is the joy and power of side quests, an ode to the squigglier brains who chase after curiosity and fun, who often feel guilty for meandering through life and not sticking to the main story. I could not love this more. Lollygagging is my favorite sport, if you want to call it that. Can you share more about this and how it's helped you with your many career pivots and uncertainty along the way?
Yeah, so thank you for the plug for my TED Talk. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned the interconnectedness before because every TEDx event has a theme for the day for all the speakers to sort of stick to. And the theme of the day I was on was interconnection. And that was the sort of philosophy behind what I wanted to talk about. And so for me, when I thought about what interconnection means, I was thinking about all those little twisty turns that I was just talking about in my career, but also all the other things that you do in your life that aren't necessarily labeled as a career, but connect who you are. And everything you do in your life, even though you think it might be a side quest or a distraction or a sidestep or a waste of time, you're actually building up skills in all of your little side quests and all of your little distractions. And that just makes you a better person and a better scientist, even if it doesn't seem so obvious. So a lot of what I wanted to speak about in my TEDx talk was removing the guilt that you tend to attach from your side quests, from exploration. So I think it's really important that people take the time to indulge in their hobbies and go down a rabbit hole and go into a deep dive, even though it's not specifically your career or your main job that you have in life, because these little detours are really important and they just pop up over and over again. So for example, outside of my work, just in my life, I'm a huge mushroom nerd. So I'm really into fungi and learning about mycology, which is the study of fungi. And so on the weekends, I'll go out and do field work with my friends from the Mycology Society and go through the forest and survey and find cool mushrooms and catalog them and, contribute towards science. And that's just a thing I do for fun because I'm a big nerd. And it's like, oh, why am I, this isn't helping my career. This is just a weird hobby I have, but I'm spending a lot of my brain energy on that. But then when you zoom out, it's like, okay, well, I want to go out and do this field work for fun because I find it interesting. And in my job as a mathematician, field work is a really important part of ecology, but I don't get to do field work in my job. But by going out and walking around the forest looking at mushrooms, I get to learn all these really important skills that make me better at my job counting fish. And so I think it's really important to sort of reframe that and think, okay, you might have hobbies and you might have weird little side quests that you go on in life and you might feel guilty engaging with them and spending all this time and being a bit of a nerd with them. But I think that those little things, those little pockets make you who you are. And that's connected to, you should be able to be you and bring those skills to every part of your life and really engage every part of yourself in every part of your life. And that was the point of my TEDx talk.
And those side quests, do they remind you of what your why is? Not in an intentional way, I guess, to start out, but you made those connections along the way.
Yeah, I think just to get philosophical, my big why is all about being my authentic self and not having to bundle up different parts of myself depending on where I am. I just want to be who I am everywhere and be okay and comfortable with that. And I think at the same time, I want to do a million different things. I said before, I didn't know what I wanted to be when I was little, but in fact, I wanted to be everything when I was little. I wanted to be all of the things. And there's this idea that when you grow up, if you want to have a career, you can't also have hobbies and you can't also have special interests and hyperfixations. And it's really important to demonstrate that you can have all these things and just tie them together, and you don't need to keep them separate from each other. You're allowed to mix all these interests and all these skills and let them sort of trickle down through all the areas of your life.
Well, on the note of speaking to younger Alise who wanted to do it all, creativity shows up in a big way in your work, from science communication to then the storytelling, the public engagement. And I'm reading here, you have a little bit of stand-up comedy experience as well. So, little Alise, I think, would be very proud of how you've branched out in all sorts of ways. How do you feed the creative side of yourself to help you in both the professional realm and personal realms?
Yeah, I think that there's such a stereotype of a scientist, in popular culture, in media, and just in public perception, this idea that scientists need to be black and white. They need to be, serious and just sort of stick to the facts and tell it like it is. I think in reality, it's much more colorful than that. And I think it's really important to let yourself follow these little different creative outlets. Like I was saying, I want to do a million different things. I want to be a scientist, but also I want to be an artist, and I also want to be a performer. And it would be exhausting to try to have to do all those things at once if I were to keep them separate. So I think it's really important that I can, again, let those worlds mix together. So I want to try everything ever in the world at least once. And so, when an email comes through saying, hey, you should sign up for this science stand-up comedy program to teach you how to be funny, I was like, of course I'm going to do that. I want to give stand-up comedy a go, or I love to paint and I love telling stories. So I was like, well, I'm going to paint the fish that I study and learn about scientific illustration. And now I can put those paintings of the fish on the front covers of the report, which helps me, learn about the anatomy of the fish I'm studying and makes me proud to show my art on the front page of a big body of scientific work that I do. I want to do all these things at once. And instead of trying to downplay one side of myself, it's much easier just, again, to show up authentically as myself and let all of these different characters, have they go, like to be creative and to express myself in different ways. And I think by letting out the creativity, I think that helps to prevent burnout as well, because it's expression and it's exciting and it's fun. And I think too that using creativity can really help people connect with science and find new audiences and find new ways of helping people understand what we're doing and to build trust and engagement with science as well. And so that's why I do a lot of the things I do. And being creative as a scientist is also a skill, and it's something that's a bit more niche and it's something I can bring to the table. And creativity is so important in science because it helps you solve problems in different ways, not just, I can paint a picture of that, like literally, but it's creativity isn't just producing art or producing these things. It's having a different mindset. And I think that's really important to bring to the table as well. So I think creativity is so important and very underrated in the sciences.
Yeah, I just had a light bulb moment when you were talking about that. We really need creative, artistic scientists and science communicators in order to bridge the gap for those of us who aren't scientists by nature or aren't into data. I'm not from the science world, but I'm interested in it. But of course, some of the concepts are far too complex for me. But for people like you, you're bridging the gap. So this is a great call to action for those in the world of STEM who have that creative itch as well that they want to scratch.
Definitely. Yeah, I think, at work, I've been making YouTube videos to explain what we do, and it just sort of like, it's a way of breaking down information in ways that are much more accessible and much more personable as well, because science can be so intimidating. And when we finish a project and we go, all right, here's a 200-page technical report, have fun, like that doesn't mean anything to anyone. It's all about breaking down what you're doing into understandable pieces of information, and you need creativity to be able to do that.
I love that so much. In your TEDx talk, as we mentioned, you reference an ode to the squigglier brains. And, off the top, we also talked about neurodivergence. You have chosen to be very open about being a neurodivergent woman in STEM. And however you feel comfortable sharing, how has that experience really shaped your approach to problem solving, your approach to how you show up in your work?
Yeah, I'm an oversharer. So when you say to the extent of what you're comfortable, you're gonna hear a lot.
Love it.
So I was a late diagnosed neurodivergent person, which I think is becoming more and more common. So I've got ADHD and autism, and I only got assessed 2 years ago, so when I was 32. And man, I wish I knew so much sooner, because it would have made things so much easier. I think that's why I'm so open about it, because it's like, things would have been a lot easier and a lot more straightforward if I had just known that my brain works a bit different than what's perceived as the normal sort of trope. So, for example, I remember being at school and university and looking around at my friends, and they'd just come in and sit down and be there on time and do the work and engage with the work and get on with it, and then be proud of what they were doing, and then be finished and go home and just do that every single day. And I'm like, that's not how I operate at all. I was like, why can't I do that? Why can't I sit down for 8 hours and just focus and work and do the thing? And why am I overthinking every single email that I've got to send or every single conversation? Why do I have to plan all this out? And there were so many thought patterns that, had I known sooner that I'm just wired a bit differently and that's okay, then it would have changed a lot about my experiences. And so I think that's why I'm so open now, is like, oh, it's okay. Not even it's okay. It's great that you're different. Like, we often talk about the challenges of having ADHD or, whatever it is, whatever neurodivergent flavor you have. We often talk about the bad things that come with that, but there's also a lot of good things as well. If you catch me in a hyper-focused state, I can do 3 months of work in an afternoon. It's a complex thing, right? There are a lot of adjustments I can make in my work, and I do make, to help me have a 9-to-5 job, and also to be able to harness the good things that come with being neurodivergent as well. So I wish earlier in my life I'd taken a step back to think about how I think and learn about how I learn, and acknowledge that that's not necessarily what is being taught to us. And it's okay that it's not, because difference is good. And, it can be scary to verbalize and articulate the things that you need to get on with your job. Like, for example, I'm really not good at reading. I can't look at a book for too long because my eyes just jump everywhere, but I can do audiobooks. And so being handed a list of journal articles to read, that's going to take me a month. But, there are programs that can verbalize them for you so you can listen to it while you read. And so, maybe you can ask your employer to purchase software to help you do that. Or, I don't do well with switching between tasks and people talking to me when I'm trying to think of this other thing. So I started using my do not disturb status and ask my team to respect that when it's on and pay attention to it, or, to fidget or to walk around in meetings or whatever you need. I think it's really important to learn the language of what things you might need, and then to ask for them, even though it's really scary. But the more we ask, the more normalized it becomes. And that's why I'm so open about it, because you got to start from somewhere. And if I'm comfortable being loud about it, then that maybe will make things easier for others as well.
The representation, by you being so vocal, it's planting a seed of possibility for other neurodivergent folks out there as well.
Definitely. Yeah.
Many women engineers in particular, we've talked a lot about this on different episodes on the podcast, struggle with confidence at one point or another, especially when, you might not see someone who looks like you in the room. What has really helped you along the way to build the confidence and to also advocate for yourself?
Yeah, I think we were just saying representation is so important. Like, having those people setting examples and breaking down stereotypes and breaking down stigmas. And if you can see someone who looks like you doing something that you want to do, just reduces the psychological cost of existing in that space as well. You can see yourself portrayed doing something, so it makes it seem achievable. Imposter syndrome, I'm sure this has been discussed at length on this podcast, but imposter syndrome is such a big, big topic. And I do a lot of speaking and I do a lot of things, but I still am just riddled with imposter syndrome. I'm like, who am I to be talking about this stuff right now on this podcast? But anyway, here I am. Imposter syndrome affects so many people. It probably affects, most of us. And I think the sooner you can acknowledge that and capture those feelings, that feeling that, like, I don't deserve these successes or these achievements or these accomplishments or this seat at the table. They're going to find out, they're going to bust me, they're going to kick me out of here. I've just fluked my way here. Like, that's nonsense. You are in that room, you're sitting in that meeting, you're sitting in that position because you've earned it, even if you don't believe it yourself yet. So for me, identifying, okay, I've got imposter syndrome, giving it a name. Once you give something a name, you can get rid of it. You can work on it. You can Google tools to overcome the scary thing. For me, I distinctly remember really early on when I first got my job, and I was so overwhelmed because I was like, I've not done anything to do with fish before. I'm not a marine biologist. I'm not an ecologist. I came from a degree about squishy roads. And so all of a sudden I had to learn all this lingo and I had to learn a whole new field, and it was so intimidating. The learning curve felt so steep. I just remember thinking, well, I'm never going to be able to do this. This is impossible. So I was like, I'm going to just confess that I'm never going to be able to do it. And so I just remember telling my boss really early on, being like, I don't know what's going on. Like I was basically trialing the idea of quitting my job. And she was like, of course you don't know. We read your CV. We know where you came from. We didn't hire you for your knowledge of this particular thing. We hired you because you have these transferable skills and this mindset of being able to learn, being able to pick up skills, not because of the knowledge that you actually know. And that was a real pivotal moment for me. And so I think ever since then, I've realized how important it is to ask questions and confess to the things you don't know, because as soon as you ask a question, it's not you being silly. It's just you opening up an opportunity to learn something new. And people tend to respect that and engage with that, not think, oh my gosh, how come she doesn't know the answer to that question? How dare she ask that? It's like a good on her for reaching out and for wanting to build her skills. There's a friend of mine who I worked with, her name is Montana. And when she first joined the team, she was fresh out of uni, but also the smartest person that you'll ever meet. And also really open about the things that she didn't know and just asked questions with such confidence. And they'd be really basic questions. She's the type of person who could come in and be like, what's a fish? And everyone would be like, wow, she's so smart. Like, look at her. Like, she didn't ask that question. But to be able to confidently identify something she doesn't know and then go, okay, I want to learn this thing. Somebody please help me understand it. And I think that's a really cool skill. And self-advocacy and standing up for yourself and asking those questions is a skill. Advocating yourself is a skill that you can work on. It's not something that you just are born with. It's something that you can develop. And it's about learning how to communicate things you need and what your boundaries are and what you do and don't know and what you do and don't need. And I think that's something that's really important for anyone looking at building confidence and self-advocacy, is that it's not just you have it or you don't. It's something that you can work on and build upon. And that's something that took me a while to realize.
I love that so much. And it reminds me of, I believe it was a study a while ago that found, the smartest people out there aren't the ones who claim to know it all, but are the ones who acknowledge what they don't know, which ties in so much into what you said. They have that baseline curiosity and aren't hindered by it when they haven't conquered a topic or subject. They lean in with that curiosity.
Curiosity is the most valuable thing you can hope for, because all of the knowledge and all the skills just come from that seed of curiosity.
Well said. Before we let you go, Alise, for women engineers and allies too, who may feel unsure or perhaps different or concerned that they don't fit that quote unquote traditional mold, what advice would you want them to hear right now?
I think who you are and how you think is valuable, not even though, but especially if you're different from that mold. Because in science and engineering and maths and technology, we need all different kinds of minds to solve problems. We need the detail-oriented people. We need the big picture people and the creative people and the hyper-focus and the literal people and the people who just pick and pick and pick at a problem. And the experiences that you have in your life and where you come from and how you carry yourself through the world means that you have a perspective that other people don't have. And that is so valuable, because there's no single correct way of being a good scientist. We need all the different people, and we need to be curious and able to ask questions and persistent to explore the things. And that's what makes you a good scientist, because there's a lot of big problems that we need to solve in the world. We've got things like climate change and, inequality in so many areas. And if we want to solve those things, we need solutions from so many different perspectives, because those problems affect everyone. So we need all of the different people's experiences and perspectives to solve them. So that means that if you're different and if you don't fit the mold, great, because you're going to be able to provide those perspectives that other people can't imagine. And so I think it's really important to include all different people and all different minds and all different demographics in STEM, because that's how we solve those global issues. If the system is not working for you, that doesn't reflect on your ability to solve things and to participate in science. It just means that the system still has work to do to be inclusive. So I think it's all about following the parts of science that spark your curiosity and chasing that and asking for the support you need and asking the questions, and don't stress about taking a path that looks different from others, because everyone's going to have their own journey. You just got to take it one step at a time.
That is so well said. Alise, thank you so much.
Thank you. This is really fun. I really enjoyed having this conversation.
Yes, I am taking the term squigglier brain with me because that's good. It just normalized it so much, the side quest that you're bound to go on and how it really adds to the bigger picture of your life and your skill set. So thank you for that necessary reminder.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think it's a big message, but it's quite a simple one. And so any chance I get to share it, I'm happy.
Love it. Thank you again, Alise, for joining us. I'm Sam East, and from all of us at SWE, thank you for listening.